What if Jean and Ningguang switched nations, and Jean became the new leader of Liyue, and Ningguang, the leader of Mondstadt? What would change, and what new rules would they implement? Today, we are going to discuss about that. Let's begin, starting with Ningguang. Hypothetically speaking, if she were to become the new leader of Mondstadt, it would create a significant divergence from the nation we know and love. First of all, it would be pretty hard for her, as most of the capable and experienced people leading the nation are out on a long expedition, with no date in sight on when they will come back. All of the pressure will be put on her, even more so than Liyue, as everyone will be looking for her when they need help. In addition, she won't have many secretaries or assistants, unlike her time in Liyue. But after getting used to the changes, her leadership would likely result in a completely different political landscape. Mondstadt's rule is largely influenced by Venti, who embodies freedom and a carefree attitude. Ningguang, being a practical and shrewd leader, would bring a more structured and business-oriented approach to governance. This could result in a shift towards a more economically focused society. Her leadership would likely emphasize structured governance, efficient resource allocation, and policies aimed at strengthening the city's economy. She would also be a bit more strict with the rules, being cautious about the harm certain activities can bring, both to Mondstadt and its people. For example, I think she would limit where and how Klee can use her bombs, as she's famous for altering the nation's geography, and she would now be more supervised, so no more fish blasting. Maybe she'll also restrict more of Albedo's and Sucrose's experiments, as the experiments they do could be potentially dangerous if something were to go wrong. But that could depend. Maybe someone like Alice could persuade her not to go through with it. Ningguang is also a master of economic strategies, having transformed Liyue into an economic powerhouse. If she takes charge of Mondstadt, her focus on trade, resource management, and economic growth could lead to a more prosperous city, maybe even as prosperous as Liyue. She might prioritize building trade routes, attracting investments, and developing industries to bolster the city's financial stability. Ningguang might work to establish stronger trade relations with other nations, similar to how she fostered trade networks in Liyue. This could result in an increase in the flow of goods, services, and ideas, further stimulating the city's economy. New trade routes and partnerships could be explored to diversify Mondstadt's economic activities. As a follower of the Geo-Archon of Liyue, Ningguang's policies would likely reflect her affinity for the Archon and the City of Commerce. Maybe she would show this by amplifying the architectural styles, city planning, and the incorporation of Liyue-related elements into Mondstadt's infrastructure. Not to the point that the city ends up looking like Liyue 2.0, but just little accents, like certain patterns, or maybe adding little lanterns on houses. Straight lines, symmetry, and geometric patterns might become more prominent in buildings and layouts, complementing the organic and free-flowing designs associated with Mondstadt's culture. Given Ningguang's tendency to create grand and impressive structures, like the Jade Chamber, she might commission monumental landmarks that celebrate the city's economic achievements or commemorate key historical events. These landmarks could also incorporate functional elements, serving as both symbols of prestige and practicality. Mondstadt's culture is heavily influenced by its connection to the Anemo Archon, Venti. Ningguang's leadership might end up bringing a more formal and reserved atmosphere, potentially affecting local traditions, festivals, and the overall atmosphere. Although I doubt she'll try to change their traditions and the festivals they celebrate. Maybe she would just encourage the integration of artistic expression with commerce. Artisan workshops, exhibitions, and performances might be strategically incorporated into economic endeavors, demonstrating the city's creativity, while also promoting its economic interests. There could however be conflicts that will arise if Ningguang were to take leadership. The conflicts could revolve around different priorities. While some citizens might see the economic potential and stability that Ningguang's leadership promises, others might view it as a threat to the freedom and the lively atmosphere that makes Mondstadt special to them. Citizens who appreciate Mondstadt's current carefree lifestyle might feel dissatisfied by Ningguang's policies. Protests, demonstrations, and vocal opposition could arise, fueled by the fear of losing their way of life? Some characters also have strong ties to Mondstadt and its old leadership. Characters like Luke, Barbara, members of the Knights of Favonius, and Venti himself, might voice concerns or actively oppose changes that contradict their values and commitments. Now let's move on to Jean. Jean's leadership style and values are rooted in Mondstadt's principles of freedom and the protection of its citizens. Transitioning to lead Liyue, a nation with a distinct culture and political structure, would be a major challenge. Jean would need to adapt her approach to fit Liyue's beliefs and expectations. It would also feel a little off to her, as she's used to doing most of everything on her own when she was the leader of Mondstadt, so it would feel weird at the start. Not to say she won't have many tasks or responsibilities. I'm sure she will have just as many, or even more in Liyue, with the high amount of business affairs they have, but having more people that share the work will be a nice change for her. Jean's affinity with the Anemo Archon and her background could bring a more dynamic and active energy to the city, giving them more of a sense of freedom. For example, maybe she will allow more of Bido's antics with the Crux fleet, no matter how expensive or destructive they seem. I mean, she allowed Klee to keep making bombs and letting her use them, so I don't see why not. Maybe she'll permit more of Hu Tao's out-of-the-box promotion for her funeral business, as long as she isn't bothering anyone. Allowing Xinyan to have even more dynamic and loud concerts, as long as there aren't any concerns, or allowing Baizu to experiment with more medicine, as long as it isn't hurting anyone. Balancing her own values with those of Liyue's culture would be essential for her to have an effective governance. Jean's focus on justice and protecting her citizens might lead to reforms in Liyue's guards and security measures. She would also work to ensure that contracts and commerce benefit all segments of society, rather than just the elite. Her presence might encourage a stronger emphasis on social welfare and the well-being of the Liyue population. Jean's leadership also might introduce new elements of Mondstadt's culture to Liyue. This could include festivals, art forms, and traditions that promote cross-cultural understanding and collaboration, enriching both nations in the process. Like maybe, she'll create her own little version of the Windbloom Festival, but instead of flowers from Mondstadt, the selection will be flowers from Liyue. I think she'd like to implement little things that promote more freedom and fun in the city. Naturally, Jean's arrival as the new leader of Liyue might face resistance from traditionalists who value their own ways. Adapting to a foreign leader could be challenging for some citizens, especially those who were already a part of Liyue's old leadership, like Gunyu, Kei-Ching, and Yelan. Jean's ability to earn the trust and acceptance of the Liyue population would be vital for her leadership to be a success. But I think like Ningguang, she can manage it and eventually earn the trust and respect of its people. And that is what I think would happen if Ningguang and Jean were to switch nations. It will be hard for both, with the switch in environment, beliefs, and skepticism of those who were already used to their old way of leading. But I think they can prove their worth to the nation and why they are trustworthy to have that role. They would share the ideals, beliefs, and goals of their former nation, but at the same time, take into consideration what the people are already used to and believe in. The end. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe and like if you ended up enjoying this video, and comment on what you guys think about it. Bye.